As the man himself said, the best laid plans of mice and men. And my plan was a simple one. I would get the bread started and rising and preheating it in the preheated oven. And then I would go outside to the pond and I would make this recording, which, as you will notice, is not at the pond. Well, the first thing that happened is that Dennis, our plumber, arrived, and that put me back a little bit, which is okay. We had some work that needed doing, and he does excellent work. And trust me, there's nothing worse than a flooded CR in the middle of the night to really ruin your sleep. But then something happened that I have absolutely no control over. The rains came a little early, and as I was setting up my shot, sure enough, I started to get splattered. Split, splot, split, splot, drip, 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 poof. So I packed up my camera, which does not like getting rained on, and I got back on my Chinese-made electric scooter, which says, "Do not ride in the rain," and I got back under shelter. And here I am now with this shot, which is from the patio. It is looking northwest, and running through the screen is a nice hunk of tree that we cut down. It was Mother's avocado tree. Now, for those of you who never knew my mother, and that is 99.9% of the people that will read this blog, there were many things in her life that she loved and a few things she hated. One of the things she loved was avocados. Oh, she just did enjoy them so much. With a little sugar or maybe a little cream, oh, she was in heaven. Which didn't go well with her diabetes, but you know how that works. Yeah, she decided that a little risk was worth it. And she survived and had a good taste. So one day, we get a big bag of avocados because we have a Doberman Cooper, a red Doberman, who thought he was a vegetarian in a lot of ways. Now, he could take a head from a barbecued pig, and in 20 minutes he could eat it. He had massively strong jaws with really big teeth, but he also loved avocados. So we'd get in bagfuls of avocados in the season, and he'd munch merrily away on them and consider them a great treat. Well, one day we found an avocado that was starting to go to seed and sprouting. And I thought of my mother, and Myra thought of my mother, and we planted it. And sure enough, it grew beautifully, and we got avocados from it, and our dog loved it, and we enjoyed it. But then that nasty thing that keeps coming to mind, some things just keep giving, Super Typhoon Odette showed up, and our avocado tree got the worst of it. So it got cut down and off, and it's sort of where it is because it's going to make nice firewood eventually, but we're letting it dry where it is, and hey, it looks nice. It sort of adds to the flavor of the yard, and it's growing back nicely, quite nicely. We thought it would die, but when we cut that last bit off, there was only a meter of stump left in the ground, but there's 15 or 20 branches growing out of it. We're going to have to cut some of those back, but we'll see which ones we take off later. So that's why I'm here with this shot. And of course, the rain has almost stopped. But if I stayed out there, I would have broke my camera. And it's a nice setup. Okay, where to now? To yesterday. Yesterday I decided I would try to take my video, load it to my YouTube channel, load it to Sway, and then load it into blogger.com. Because if I load it straight into blogger.com, it's not too big. It comes with that silly advertising at the bottom for people way off of my topic, and I didn't like it, and Myra didn't like it. But with Sway, you load it onto YouTube, go to Sway, and Sway just keeps you on your channel. The question was, how would it look in Blogger, and would it still stay in my channel? And Myra thinks, and I think, it looks pretty good, and it stays in the channel. I even tried it on her computer, in case it did something different with mine. And it looks good. So that's what's going to happen with this one too. I will keep making these videos. I will put them to YouTube. And I will then go through Sway and get back to Blogger. And if I was dictating this, I'd say new paragraph. Now, there's a reason for this. At give or take a day, 71 years old, and arthritis, plus MS for 40 years plus, a mild case of MS. Don't get me wrong, it's not a major problem. Well, not at the time anyway, it's gotten to be. But now my hands don't work so good for typing. I make a lot of mistakes, even with spell checker, because I can't always remember to use a spell checker. Maybe a bit of dementia sitting in there somewhere. In any case, the video allows me to put out my thoughts. It gets some nice pictures of the yard, and I hope those people who like to read will also like my videos. Because if you're going to go to my blog to get interested in what I say, you get more of it in the video. Alright. So that's 7.5 minutes of why I'm sitting here and how come it's going to work. I also took a look at prices. And it turns out that a good Canon camcorder is about 2/3 the cost of my next upgraded Sony camera. Sort of a bridge Sony, built-in lens, zoom, don't have to change anything. So when this one goes, I think I will get a camcorder. I still enjoy taking pictures, but the camcorder use is getting more and more, which is okay. But that's hopefully a long time in the future, because this camera just doesn't seem to want to break, and I love that about it. Now, I don't know. Funny thing happened on my way to the hit center, see what's happening with my blog. I went back to this and I found that I had become popular in Russia. I was getting anywhere between 10 and 20 hits on my blog, and I hadn't touched my blog in a year, but for some reason it was getting popular in Russia. Yesterday, for the first time in a week and a half, there wasn't anything from Russia. Nobody was making the connection. Mind you, I was getting good hits out of the Netherlands, and some action in Ireland and England, America, India, around the globe. So sometimes it works in one country, sometimes it goes to another. It's kind of fun to watch it. I hope that I haven't offended anybody in Russia, and I hope even more that I haven't been blocked by the Russian authorities, which are getting to be as prim and proper as the Chinese authorities when it comes to what gets in and out on the web. But we'll see if Russia comes back online with me. I hope you do. Yes, definitely the rain has stopped. I could have been out there, but it's a nice view. And when this is over, which it will be in just a second, I'm going to try for a still shot, same image, and I'll put it all together in the blog today as long as I keep getting electricity. Now, the good news this morning is that our strawberries are starting to go to fruit. And that's getting interesting. We've got them under a mosquito net now to keep the bugs off. Hopefully that's going to work well. We have tomatoes that look like they're going to be going to blossom in another week or so. The world famous peanuts, Peanuts, are doing very well. We keep adding soil, they keep getting mounded up, and the ladies figure, yeah, November, December, we're going to be eating peanuts with Christmas. What else is working well? Well, almost everything. The beans are growing all over the fences, and all three families are getting good meals out of those a couple times a week. There goes my name. Well, anyway, there's some nice vegetables, other vegetables, fruits. I don't know if they're a fruit or a vegetable. But in any case, they look like a pear and they taste somewhat like an apple. And more of those are growing. These plants really enjoy growing on whatever bush is hanging around, and we had some bushes near them, and we have got 4 or 5 meters of bushes covered in their leaves now, so it looks like the fruit will keep coming with them. And the fish are doing great. They survive the moving and the draining of the pond and the filling it up again. Now our lower pond is, I don't know, never actually measured it, but I'd have to say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 meters long, and at its widest 4, at its narrowest 1.5. And everywhere I threw fish food this morning, they were popping up to the surface to eat the fish food, so they're doing very well. And the lady said though they were small, they were tasty, which is good. And again, by my birthday, and certainly by Christmas, by my birthday we should have the second harvest, Christmas the third. We'll see what happens after that. We've already had with spawning in the upper pond, so if we get lucky, we can keep the cycle going. And we'll just have to see what happens there. Dragon fruit is starting to grow. There are 4 of them now that are sprouted. Not fruit, but new limbs. And that was hopefully just the start. There are, I don't know, 50 transplants we've got around the yard now. And even if only half of them grow, we'll be ahead of the game. Time will tell. Always with the garden, time will tell. It's kind of a nice thought. You can, no, I don't know about you, but I feel very good in a seasonal calendar, a cyclic time. And it explains most religions, most faiths, and a great deal of spirituality. Judaism was based on the cycles, the seasons, the harvest. The Nile produced the religion in Egypt for centuries. On the west coast, in the village I was in, there was a rock that you sat on. One specific person got to sit on it or stand behind it, as the case may be. And they would look across the fjord and the mountains on the other side of the fjord. Each particular spot and gully had been noted, and they knew which ones corresponded to the times of the year. When it was the sun set to this one, you knew it was time to prepare for oolakins. When it set at the other one, you knew it was salmon time. You knew when winter was coming. You knew when the longest day of the year was. You knew when the shortest day of the year was. All of this adds to spirituality and religion. The sun, the moon, the seasons. It's a nice way to keep track of time. There was a Western movie I was watching yesterday. The perfect example of it. And it was an old one from the late 40s, early 50s. And at one point, the secondary hero is leaving where he had been recuperating from injuries, and he gives one guy some money that looked after him, and the other one he gave his watch to, because he didn't have more cash. And the guy with the money said, "Whoa, folding money, look at that." And his brother said, "Really nice, but look, he gave me his watch." And the guy said, "His watch? You get up with the sunrise, you go to bed with the sunset, and you eat when you're hungry. What do you want with a watch?" And the guy looked at the watch and he said, "Well, it's pretty." And he held it up to his ear and he said, "And it sounds nice too." But he didn't need one for his life. And if you go back in Europe's history, up until, okay, you'll have to check this one out, don't bet my soul on it or yours, but I do believe that until the 1400s, 1500s, big clocks and small clocks only had hour hands. They didn't have minute hands, and they sure as God made little green mangoes didn't have second hands. An hour was close enough. The monks needed more precise measurement for when to get up and say their prayers and what have you, and they invented all sorts of really neat water-driven clocks and weight-driven clocks that kept them in the proper routine. But for ever so long, people needed to know when the sun rose and the sun set and what it meant in the time of the season, and they needed to know a basic hour. But it wasn't until exploration via the ocean, and they needed a way to find their actual location, that they needed accurate clocks to the minute and the second, and the West started building these incredible clocks that get so accurate and keep you going and knowing what time it is. I think the one that sticks in mind is that Canada built a clock accurate to 1/10,000,000th of a second a year. I have no idea who needs to be that accurate, but scientists did, so more power to them. But I like the seasons. I got used to them as a lighthouse keeper. You still needed to work to the minute and the hour because you had weather reports to do, but not so much else that you were worried about. Coffee, breakfast, lunch, those were when you were hungry and about the right time. In the village, time was fluid. They would teach me with stories, and the stories sounded like from 10 or 20 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. But every generation I talked to told me the same story, and over the time period it was, at least 100 years that this story had been told and retold, and undoubtedly it went back farther than that. They were teaching stories, and it didn't really matter when they happened. The lesson was going to be the same. So they would adopt them and move them and change them a bit. The teaching stayed the same, but the add-ons changed for the time and the season. Anyway, talking about times and seasons, this has gone on long enough. I'm going down memory lane way too much on this. So you folks, you have a good day and a good time. I hope all of that got on the voice. I was a little soft there for a while. But that's it for now. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.